Corey Oldsvary has come out of the treehouse to talk to us about Splatoon, which was kind of enigmatic when we saw it at E3. We didn't know exactly how this game would unfold. It was very multiplayer focused at E3, but today we've had a chance to play through some single player. Tell us how you're briefing the single player campaign of Splatoon.
The bread and butter of Splatoon really is that 4 versus 4 online multiplayer action of controlling territory with ink. That being said, we do have a robust single player campaign where you get to head down into the underground where a group of octopi, this evil octopi army, has stolen this giant electric catfish that's used to power the city, and it's your job as an inkling to go down and recover this giant catfish.
What I played of the single player doesn't feel like the multiplayer at all. Was that something that you were trying to do? Is it to try to train people for multiplayer or to go off in a totally different tangent?
It's actually two-faceted. For one thing, while you're playing it, you're learning at your own pace a lot of skills and techniques that can be carried over to the multiplayer, such as inking the walls and then being able to climb up the walls as a squid. That's a strategy that you definitely want to know before you hop into a multiplayer match. That being said, there's a lot of unique things like the Octarian enemies that you face. Those only show up in the single player campaign. Some of my favorites are the Octolings, the females that are like the elite troops of the Octarian army, and sneaking past them is a really big challenge. There's a lot of creative puzzles that you'll have to use your brain a little bit to figure out how you want to tackle these ink puzzles and whatnot.
Miyamoto has been pretty vocal about the fact that he doesn't really think of story when he's creating new game IP or new ideas. He starts with the mechanics first.
Right.
And it feels like this is a game that exemplifies that. It feels like you guys had a squishy ink mechanic and then you built and structured all of this elaborate story around it. Is that how it came together?
That's spot on. When we started development on this game, there were no squids involved whatsoever. They kind of had the basic gameplay down, and once it was determined that you were going to be covering territory with ink, they made that connection in the characters and the game world and things. That comes together at the end in a way that makes sense for the gameplay.
Are we going to see staples of action shooter type third-person games where you're getting into boss fights and things like that? Is that going to be a part of the single-player campaign of Splatoon?
There will be boss fights. You'll come across some interesting boss fights in the campaign for sure.
What's the one thing that shooter fans and gamers that are really comfortable in the shooter kind of environment have to take into consideration when they jump into Splatoon?
I think it's to expect something completely new. If you come at it and you start playing turf war like a traditional shooter and just try to headshot everyone or just KO everyone, it's going to feel good. But again, the objective is to cover the most territory with ink, so it kind of changes how you have to approach gameplay. Whether you come at it from an angle like I'm a grizzled shooter veteran or I'm completely new, I've never even played a shooter game online before, there's something for everyone. You can play online with turf war and immediately start having fun.